no stumbling, there's no stalling. In it, Rotella, diesel oil. See how she starts. Okay, we're going to do our cold start video. I think it was mid-20s last night. It's pretty early in the morning. Got to take these two out and use them, so that's the only reason we're starting them. Everybody's different, every engine's different, but a lot of the Onans full choke, quarter, third throttle, kind of where I set them. Let them run choke for a minute or so, you know, half, third choke, and they'll start leveling out. You'll hear them, and the moisture in the exhaust, usually when that clears out, they're kind of warmed up, but it all depends how much moisture is in there. Sometimes they'll burn off a little condensation for a couple minutes, sometimes, you know, 20 seconds and they're cleared out. All depends on the last time they run, and I think the temperature difference. Any of these cases we got here, they'll all start up just like that in cold weather. A lot of people talk about having tractors and Onans to start hard, or Kohler or Briggs or whatever it is. But if they're tuned right and adjusted right and in good shape, they fire up just like that as you see. 15 of our own here that we've gone through and done up. And I guarantee all of them would start up just like that and run fine. I'm going to go pull the chokes down a little bit and they'll level out. And I let them sit in the cold. I let them sit like this for at least 5 minutes. Usually try to 10. Get the hydraulic oil moving mainly. And the oil and the engine up to temperature, best thing to do for them. So if it's cold, go start them up, have a cup of coffee, then go back out and work them. So the one on the left of the bucket has got 540 Schaefer's diesel oil in it. And you saw it started up, cranked over just fine. The one on the right has got 2050 Schaefer's racing oil. And that also started up, cranked up just fine, no issues. That's why we tell everybody, don't be afraid of the 2050 unless you're in brutal cold when you're actually starting the machine. Not where you live and how cold it gets, not the coldest record you've ever had, not 3 o'clock in the morning, but actually when you're going to go out and start it and what temperature it's starting at. And if you're inside a garage or a heated building, then obviously that's different too. You want to pick the best oil for when these things are running at. That's the most important. So as long as you can get them started with protection, the oil you choose is what they're running at and temperature they're working at. We'll go do a quick cold start of the diesel too. Little diesels, they definitely start much harder. What I do with them is usually about a quarter, third throttle. And these got a manual glow plug you got to do. So you turn this back, and inside this little hole there's a coil you'll see heat up. And as that starts turning glowing red, that's when you fire it off. So what I'll do is I'll turn this for a little bit, and then I crank the engine just to get some oil going through them. I just want to get some fuel in the cylinder, some oil moving through. And then now I'll do the glow plug. Usually it's probably 25-30 seconds, depends on the temperature of when this thing will fire off. I don't know, you probably can't see in the camera, but it's starting to turn red now. It's probably been 15-20 seconds. Sometimes it takes a couple times, or you just keep cranking the starter. takes about 15, 20, 30 seconds, which will smooth out. And then after it gets the next temperature up, it warms up and it does right. But they start okay in the cold, you know, not bad. Like I said, it's not 0 degrees out. It was probably 20, 25 last night. I just wanted to show you that. Also with the gas engine ones, normally, I did this for the video to show you, but normally I'll do the same thing. I'll crank them over for 10, 15 seconds without the choke on, get the oil pumping through the engine, get everything lubricated so we don't have a dry start. Then I put the choke on and then fire right off. It was 10 degrees out last night. Another cold start video. Gonna crank these over to get the oil flowing and then we'll choke them and see them fire up. I just try to get the oil circulating, get the cylinders coated, things coated while they're fired up cold. Gonna choke it all the way, throttle about 1/4 to 1/3. And we'll do the same thing on this other one. The one that just started, it's got 540 Schaefer's diesel oil. This other one's got 2050 Schaefer's racing oil. Again, I'm going to crank it over just to get some oil coating and flowing. You hear that 2050 fire turns right over, no issue. It's also in the hydraulics, in the motor and the hydraulics on this tractor. And the one that first started is got 540 in the motor and the hydraulics. Now I'm going to choke it all the way, about 1/4 throttle. Both of them running. No issue. You'll watch the condensation burn off. About the same time the condensation burns off, it's the choke usually about pretty close to ready to come off. I leave the chokes on about 1/3, 1/4. For 30 seconds to a minute, let them warm up. There's no stumbling, there's no stalling. Now we're going to turn it up, we're going to turn the choke off. You probably can't hear a difference between the two of them. So that one's cleared out. I'm going to pull the choke all the way off. Like I said, it's about 1/4, 1/3. And they level right out. And in the real cold, I let them warm up like this for at least 5 minutes, but ideally at least 10 really. Let the hydraulic oil warm up. Then get a little thinner, let the motor warm up and everything get even and less chance of anything wearing, breaking, blowing hoses. So it was 10 degrees all last night. This customer's coming to pick up this tractor they just bought. This one's got 1540 diesel in it, Rotella diesel oil. See how she starts. No issues with the 1540, 10 degrees all night, just fired right up. Normally I'll crank them over a few times, get the oil moving, you know, for maybe 10, 15 seconds, let it sit, do it again. But I didn't want to do it too much because I knew she'd fire up and I wanted you guys to see it start up cold. Condensation is burned out of the muffler, it's running. No reason to switch this oil in the wintertime unless you're always below zero. It's starting it up below zero. We wanted to give you guys a few cold weather tips with these machines in particular, or any small engine or any engine for that matter. A couple of things that really do help with any kind of cold start. Obviously, if you can't keep it inside, then keeping them indoors is the best you can do. But if you can't, start it up ahead of time. So if you're going to be able to start it up, you know, 6, 8, 10, 12 hours ahead of time, let it warm up, let all the fluids get warm, and all the oil get up on the surfaces and cling and coat, and let it do its thing. And you'll have much better luck if you do that, and it's much easier on the machine as well, just to get everything kind of warm and coated, and it doesn't get as cold as quick and whatnot. The metal will kind of retain some of the heat, and as well your fluids for a little while. And I'm talking about extreme colds. You start getting down to 20 degrees down to negative zeros. That's when you start doing this stuff. Um, Also, warm up is key. Let all the fluids get warm, especially these case Ingersolls with the hydraulic fluids and hydraulic drives and the thicker oils. Getting them up to operating temperature is key before you go work them, and you'll have far less problems. Also, like we were doing in the video, always in the cold, I'll crank these over without putting the choke on or without using the glow plugs or whatever, and crank them over for 10-15 seconds or whatever. Let them sit and do it again, just to get that oil moving, everything coated up, you don't have dry starts. And all this makes a huge difference. Battery tenders and solar chargers make a big difference. Just keeping some heat in those batteries from the solar chargers makes a big difference. Um, so sometimes you just no avoiding cold starts, and the equipment's kept outside, and you can't control the weather, and there are things you can do. We don't change the hydraulic oil or the engine oil weights for winter and summer. Oil's come a long, long way, and we just don't do it on anything. And we run, as you can see, very heavy oil: 1550, 550, 540, 2050. Again, and most of our machines are outside, and we don't have any issues because, again, oil has come a long way. The 2050 people get scared of. I run it and started up at 0 degrees. You saw what it did here in 10 degrees. That was in the hydraulic system that's cranking all the time, as well as the engine. And yes, it's synthetic 2050, so that does help some. My belief is you want the oil to be the best oil weight and quality when you're working the machine at its operating temperature and when it's being put under a load. And with these, the heavier the oil it is, the better protection and better performance you get out of it at operating temperature. So the reasons to go to lower weight oil in the wintertime is because they start easier. But you're only starting this thing for a few minutes. I mean, a couple seconds to start it and warm up. So as long as this thing's cranking over enough to fire up and you give it ample time to warm up, run the heavier oil. And the fact is, heavier oil transfers power in these hydraulic systems better than thinner weight oil does. So if you got heavier oil, then you're going to have better performance while you're operating, not while you're sitting here starting. And the heavier oil handles the heat in these hydraulic systems and in motors much better. To a degree, obviously. But just a few tips and a few things. Gas engines as well as the diesel engines. Some people may refer to the manuals, and the manuals were written a long time ago. Again, a lot of it's older technology oil. And don't forget, manufacturers always err on the side of caution with recommendations so they can get out of warranty, avoid warranty issues as well. But we've never had a cold oil issue with running too heavyweight oil. If your machine's cranking and it's firing and it'll run that oil. 90% of these case Ingersolls run 1540 in the hydraulics. We run it in the hydraulics and the engines. And if you guys want to change the oil and thin it out in the wintertime, obviously it's up to you. Go for it, but there's no need for it. And we run mostly in our own personal ones, a lot of 2050, and also really like 540 diesel oil as well. It's a nice balance. And the 540 definitely does crank easier than the 2050, hands down, in the wintertime. But again, the 2050 does great. So just take care of your equipment. Start it up, the night before, or 6-8 hours time. Give your equipment some break. And the other nice thing about the heavy oil in the cold, the benefit to it is we've got a video of oil flowing and pouring characteristics in the cold. Check that video out. But this 2050 will sit and cling on your engine overnight and not all drop down to the pan. And that's another advantage to running the heavier oil, where if you run really, 530, 520 weight oil, that stuff, you shut the machine off in 20 minutes, it's all back down on the pan. And yeah, there's a slight coating, definitely, but the heavier oil is a little more tacky, a little more stickier, and it just clings to the metal parts a lot better, especially in these older, bigger tolerance motors. Same thing with the older diesels and stuff. Check out our website for tons of information on case Ingersoll tractors if you need parts. So we've got a lot of new, used, custom parts as well. We stock a lot of Onan, Briggs & Stratton, and Kohler engine parts for all brands. Check us out at caseingersolltractors.com. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps us and helps others find our video. And we really appreciate you guys watching. Thanks.